Hello, happy Tuesday.
We keep going live on different days now that I'm like, what day is it? Happy what?
No, we don't know what the day is. We just know we're supposed to be here. We're super excited to be here. Guys, we're in day 2 of our Shred Your COVID-19 weight loss challenge. First of all, we want to just say how proud we are of you. So proud of you guys for doing the homework, doing the work. Hi. And showing up. And I tell you right now, that is half the battle. We've seen partners get together. We've seen people have been asking questions like there's no tomorrow. It's been absolutely amazing. So we want to say thank you. Thank you for that, guys.
I saw on the homework thread, there was like 90 something comments on the homework thread. So that's good. Yay, you guys. And yeah, this has been so good so far. So your homework for the first call, so for our first live, which was about the 4 steps, is due now, like right now.
Get it in.
Although don't leave right now, but after this, your homework is due today technically. So if you want to get entered for all of those prizes, and if you really want to make progress is the biggest part of this. But yes, the prizes are fantastic, but you also want to do the work. We've seen lots of comments about how eye-opening doing those steps was. So we really, really want you to participate in that. And of course, we want to give away stuff. So get that homework in. The only page that you have to submit is your your adjustment page is the only one with the 3 circles on it. And if you can't get to a printer, draw 3 circles. We've seen lots of drawing and that works quite nicely. You can also go ahead and just like download it onto your phone and write into it on your phone. I've seen lots of people doing that too. So it doesn't have to be our sheets. They were just a guideline. But anyways, make sure you get that homework in.
Yes. So excited though, guys. This is day 2. We're talking all about anxiety, controlling what you can control. This is going to be a big day because, when we originally designed this challenge, we weren't even in the same world we were in even 3 weeks ago when we designed it. So I feel like it's even a bigger and more important topic that we talk about right now. But again, pen and paper, grab it. What we want you to do is we want you to take the information in that we're giving you guys. Then we're going to give you the homework again. I'm going to post it in the group just like we did after day 1. You're going to have to maybe come back and watch this video again, pause it, right? Do those things. But all of the things that we are doing, all the steps, right? We always say there's method to our madness. Like we promise you that. There's method to our madness, right? We started with mindset. We talked about your weight goal. Now we talked about the 4 steps. And this next one, which is our day 2 information, is really, really important because a lot of people are struggling right now. But let's be honest, life is going to throw us, hopefully, not the same 2020 anytime soon, but we know that life will throw us curveballs all the time. So we really want to address some of the main things, which is anxiety. We see overwhelm. We see things that we, when it comes to where we can control and what we can't control. So we really want to bring this to the forefront. And we've had a lot of questions. You'll notice I posted a lot about, my Sashas and my Janes and those type of questions, because we have these questions come up when people start doing some of this work and they think, oh, that doesn't apply to me. And then they're like, oh, right, it does. So today, if you're like, actually, I feel pretty good. I have no anxiety. I have no fears. We salute you. We think that's amazing. And we hope that is true. But here's the thing. If you struggle a little bit with that overwhelm, that feeling of concern, that feeling of anxiety, that fear, all of those things, we took a poll in our group a few months ago now, and one of the biggest things that people fear was gaining their weight back. That was the biggest fear that they had. And so because we know a lot of people feel that way, we want to make sure that we address it. So Christina, what are we doing today?
Okay, so we're going to actually start with, this is going to help you if you have not finished your action steps from so you've done, yes, Ben is still having class in 15 minutes, whoever just asked that. So yes, Karen. You can come back and watch this afterwards if you're going to Ben's class. Anyways, so if you're having a little bit of a hard time getting your action steps, your that 3rd step done, this is actually going to help you with that. And some of the action steps, a lot of the time we see that people will say things like, I want to lose 15 pounds. And that's fantastic that you want to do that. But we're going to talk a little bit about things you can control and things you can't control. And losing 15 pounds is actually in the can't control category, that it's something that you actually don't have control over. You can do the things to get you to that. You can, eat right, you can exercise, you can get your mind right, you can drink your water, you can sleep well, you can do all those things, but ultimately you cannot control what the scale does. No more than you can control what Lindsay does, what I do, what anybody does. So that's something that we're going to talk about first, is the things you can control versus the things you can't control. Then we're going to move into and talking about fear versus anxiety and kind of the difference between the two and how to work within them both. And then we're going to move and talk a little bit about choices, actions, and outcomes. And then finally, we're going to finish off with a little training that Lindsay does on anchors, which is amazing. So, and then like Lindsay said, there is going to be some worksheets. So let's get started with your circle of control. As somebody who is a self-proclaimed control freak, this is one that I have had to learn many, many times over. It's still a work in progress. Some days I still struggle with it. But things that you can control, or even better, a better word, things that you have influence over, is just a more positive way of putting that, because control tends to have a bit of a negative connotation to it. So things that you have influence over. You have direct influence over your own behavior. You have direct influence over your mistakes, over your efforts, over the things that you do for enjoyment. You have direct, influence over your body, the way it moves, and that kind of thing. You have direct influence over your thoughts and your mindset, which sometimes we feel like we don't actually have a direct influence over, but we do. You have a direct influence over your attitude, your choices, your actions, your ideas, and your words. So you'll notice a common theme in the things that you have direct influence over all involve you. So they are all your personal things. So that is something that's really, really important, is that you can only control the things that belong to you. You cannot control the things that belong to others. So you can't control other people's words, other people's mistakes, other people's successes, other people's actions, their thoughts, their ideas, their fun, their not fun, their all of their things, including your children, your spouse, your parents, anybody. You can't control those things about somebody. You can help with some of those things and you can encourage and all of that, but ultimately you cannot control the things that other people are doing. So that's a really huge thing. So when you're thinking about, I'm in a bad mood, or I'm struggling, or, I can't go on, or I can't lose weight because of Lindsay, that it's Lindsay's fault that I can't lose weight. Except that it's not, because Lindsay doesn't have direct influence over me. So sometimes we like to place the blame for that in other places, and simply put, it is something that you can control. You can control what goes in your body, how you move your body. You can control the thoughts and the actions and the feelings and all of those things that lead up to you consuming things or moving or doing all of those, that those are all under your direct control. And for some of us, that's a bit of a slap in the face. Because for a long time, we felt like those things were out of our control. So part of this journey is very much going to be taking back the control over those things. So if you don't purchase your own food, it does make it a little more difficult if you're not the person in your house that buys groceries. I hate this where it flips me sides. So if you're not the person that does that, then that might be something you need to take back some of the control over that so that you're making healthy purchases. But ultimately, what comes into your home and what goes into your body, might be two slightly different things sometimes, that you need to be able to shake that up a little bit. But you have direct control over the rest of that stuff. So when you're thinking about the pieces of your journey that you're struggling with, those things that you put on your adjustment worksheet, those are things that you can control. And that's what we really want to empower you to take back that control. I know that I felt out of control when I was overweight, and when I was really struggling, when I first had my surgery, even that I was in an unhealthy marriage, and I felt like it was, things that were out of my control. But as soon as I started to take back those pieces of my control, it was really empowering, and it actually helped fuel my success in so many ways. Also taking my successes and making them mine and not giving credit to other people. And I'm very careful with that even now. Obviously, you guys know that Lindsay has heavily influenced my fitness world, but I never give her credit for my fitness because she doesn't show up and do the work. She can't move my body. She can't build these muscles. She doesn't hurt for me at the end of it. So ultimately, it's me that's doing the work. So you need to take control of your successes and of your failures and be accountable for those for yourself. So that's a really big one. So we have in the homework, it looks something like this. It's slightly different, but it's basically a worksheet that has things I can control and things I can't control on one side. And we want you to take some time and fill that out for you specifically. So the things that you're struggling with and the things that you're celebrating, and putting them into that worksheet to show what is in your control and what isn't in your control. So there's some things that you're going to have to let go. If you have a boss that just really sucks the life out of you every day, you can't necessarily control that boss. And right now is probably not a fantastic time to be looking for a new job. So that's something that may be out of your control right now, that you can't control that sucky boss, but you can control your reaction to it. You can control your mindset around it. So that's something you can control. So if you have something that you can't control, what is something about that that you can control, so that you reframe it? That, like I said, you can't control the sucky boss, but you can control how you react to that sucky boss, how you limit exposure to that whenever you can, how you don't share certain pieces of your life with that person if they're just somebody that is going to use that against you. And you know, if your spouse isn't really supportive of your weight loss journey, well, then maybe you're not celebrating or complaining to your spouse about this, and sharing those struggles, those deep, dark personal struggles with that person if they're not really supportive. It doesn't mean that you're not sharing the rest of your life with that person. That's great. But if this one piece that they're not very supportive on, then find somebody else that is.
Yeah.
Right.
And control is one of those things too, guys, that is so valuable in this journey. Just kind of like where we see a lot of people being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. My eyes are wide open. You know, some of these things, like when I was talking about the Sashas and the Janes of the world, like these are all things that are just brand new. And some of these concepts are absolutely brand new. And it's not to say that, you know, you're behind or any of those things, but it is taking that responsibility, right? A lot of the times we look at things and we say, oh my gosh, this is why, this is how, this is who, this is what. That's not the case at all. It has to come back to you, and it has to be your responsibility. Now, that kind of sucks when we don't want that to be the case. It's a lot easier to turn around and say, well, it was his fault, or it was her fault, or, you know, I did this because of that person. With our kids, we say it a lot. You know, my daughter will be like, well, she made me feel that way. Well, the truth of the matter is she doesn't make you feel anyway. You choose to feel a certain way. Actions and words that they have done make you feel a certain way. So just keep that in mind when you're going through all of these processes, all of these things. Is because you're the only one that you can control. That's it. I mean,
and when all of those excuses start creeping up, because they do, they creep up for us too on a regular basis. Start thinking and grab your worksheet and be like, you know, is this excuse, is it something I can control? Is it something I can't control? Is, you know, are these things that are, is this a valid excuse? Or can I work my way through this by using the pieces of my journey that I can control, or the pieces of my life that I can control versus the pieces that I can't? And sometimes those pieces that you can't, you literally just have to let them go. If you can't control it, you can't control it. So you need to be able to release it. That if you're not going to be able to influence change when it comes to that specific thing, then you need to be able to let it go. And that is going to be a really, really helpful thing for your mindset to be able to move through that. All right, so let's move into a little bit about fear and anxiety, because I feel like this is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, so this is a big one, guys, and I work with a lot of life coaching clients strictly about anxiety. I'm not going to lie. We see it in this community a lot. We also see it, you know, in the world a lot when it comes to all the different things. So really, really important. I want you guys to think about how are we going to shift out of that anxiety feeling and really into a productive stance of what are we going to do today? How is it going to work today? So let me just first say that there's layers of everything. Of course, we always say there's black and white, and then there's gray, and there's lots of shades of gray, not talking the movie or the book, but lots of shades. And the whole idea of that is that right now it is okay to not be okay. And this is something that I have to say to my clients and say to our members of our groups and stuff, is that it's okay to not be okay. With COVID going on, with obviously Black Lives Matters going on, with all of the things. I mean, 2020 has been already one of the craziest years we've seen in a long time, probably in my lifetime, probably in a lot of your lifetimes. So it's okay to feel not okay. It's okay to have these feelings. So that's the first thing. Be okay with being okay, and give yourself clearance to say, you know what, it's okay. I'm fine. I'm working my way through this, and that is part of the process. But again, right, we have staying safe, we have washing hands, we have, you know, protesting, we have rioting, we have human rights, we have things that are going on right now that, you know, whether we say that that's life and it happens all the time or not, there's always things that are going on. And when you have really high anxiety, whether there's lots of things going on or little things going on, you're still in the same place. You're still feeling those things. So here's a really important thing, okay? the difference between anxiety and fear is something that I think is really important. That's the very first step to understanding, because I hear people say, oh, I'm so anxious about that. Or, you know, I have so much anxiety over that. And really, I want you to understand that anxiety, this is the definition, is intrusive thoughts of threatening things that are not happening. Okay, so things that are going on in your brain that are not actually happening outside. So for example, what if I got on the highway and a semi-automatic truck threw into my car and I went flying into the river down to the bottom of the sea and I couldn't get out, right? That is an anxiety thought, right? Something that's not happening currently in our brain. But the thing is that when our bodies are listening to some of those anxiety and those anxious thoughts, that it doesn't actually give us an opportunity to explain. And what I say to my clients a lot of the times is we have the anxiety thoughts, and then we have our logical thoughts, right? We all have both in our system. Everybody has some anxiety thoughts, everybody has some logical thoughts, but it just depends on how it works in that frame, right? Is the anxiety thoughts pushing higher? Is the logic thoughts coming down here and kind of working in that position of that? So, you know, worst case scenarios, what ifs, and right now there is a lot of what ifs, right? What if this happens? What if I get sick? What if I have to go to the hospital? What if, there are definitely a lot more than there have been. But talk to somebody with high anxiety and it's the same as everyday life. Like what ifs are their lifestyle. This is what they deal with. So you have to remember that it's like a mental movie, right? These what ifs are like a mental movie that are processing in your brain. And what's happening is that your brain is responding to these thoughts, whether they know if they're real or not. And so it basically impacts everything, our immune system, the stress we put on our system, which we all know that stress is a big component of not being able to lose some weight, right? It gives us that red alert of always being worried that something is going to happen. And even though you're in a safe place, maybe you're sitting at home and you're just chilling, watching us right now live, you know, we're in red alert state that maybe a tree is going to fall out of the sky and break through my roof and now I'm sitting here, right? So those are the things that it really does. Even though you're safe, you're on this idea of threat all the time. So your body's in a red alert state. Now, a few really important things. If you do struggle from anxiety, I am not saying you shouldn't be taking medicine, you shouldn't be seeing a doctor, you shouldn't be seeing a therapist. That is not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is as you work through some of these anxieties and these thoughts, it is coming into that logic perspective. So if you're sitting in your current space and, you know, I'm here in Mexico and the house is made of concrete, the chances of a tree actually breaking through my roof are pretty slim because my walls are made of concrete. So that's my logic thought. So if I have a thought here that says, what if a tree falls into my house? It's, you know, my logic thought is, well, wait a second. I actually have concrete walls, and that is where that logic thought comes up and that anxiety kind of pushes down. Now, again, I work very, very close with some people on this. I work a lot of information. I cannot go over all of the, you know, the tricks and the tips and the strategies on how to do it in one of these calls. Unfortunately, that is not something that is available to do. So I wanted to just touch base on some of the important factors of that. When you're thinking about things, I want you to think in a logic space. So if you're thinking about something and you're like, is that logical? Or is that my anxiety playing the what if, you know, movie trailer game? And that's kind of where you have those moments. So if you're thinking something, ask yourself instantly, is it logical or is it my anxiety playing my movie trailer? That's the most important thing. Now, going from that to fear. Fear is one of these emotions that has gotten a really bad rap. It's bad to be scared. It's bad. It actually is not. Fear saves us on a regular basis. You know, when you're driving and all of a sudden somebody pulls over, you may say a few choice words, but all of a sudden you're shaky and, you know, you're breathing heavy. That is our fight and flight mentality. That is how we are able to steer out of the way but not go into the wall and have these moments. You know, grab your kid before they walk out into the side of the road. Fear is valuable for us, and it's super, super important to protect us, and it becomes our emotional guidance system. It allows us to turn around and say, okay, I am scared to do this. I do have fear to do that, but what is it? What can I do to help with that? And what can I do to support that? So as I said at the beginning, we saw a lot of people that their biggest fear is to gain their weight back. Now, when you have that, if that's something that happens to you, I want you to think about it. Is that a real fear? Chances are probably, right? You know, I know we've had conversations with many people that is a very big fear. You know, 2 pounds turns into 5, turns into 30, and all of a sudden they've gained all their weight back. But that is our emotional guidance system. So take that fear and put the steps in place to not fall back into those old patterns. right? So fear sometimes paralyzes us, but what we are needing to do is working with that fear and say, okay, what can I do to help, to change, to support this? So that's the big difference between the two of them. And it's really, really important to understand that you can have both simultaneously working together. You can have one way higher, you can have one way lower, but it also comes back to what we just said, what you can and cannot control, right? And that is where we want to see when it comes from your homework perspective, is that some of these anxieties, some of these fears that you might have, I want you to look at our homework sheet into those circles and see, is it something you can control? Is it something that you have that control over on your thoughts, those type of things? And if it's not, then you need to work through the anxiety or the fear loop, because that is really going to be valuable. Because if you can't control it, there's no way that you can have the anxiety and fear over it to allow it to break down and take you away from whatever your focus is. So keep that in mind. Very, very important. It's a constant loop, like a movie, right? It literally is. It's that constant, you're watching a movie and then something comes up, you're watching a movie, something comes up. I know I work with a client who, she'll listen to something on the news and instantly that becomes her new fear. And I'm just like, well, we all know the news is filled with so much good joy and love. Not, right? It all piles in. So if you're constantly doing that and that's where you feel like that is something that helps with that, movie loop of ours, then stop listening to the news. Stop watching the TV. Down to it, focusing on what you can control will really help reduce that anxiety loop that we all fall into. So, all right, Christina, talk to us about it.
So we're going to move through into how does this apply to like everyday life. And like Lindsay said, things are going to come up all the time. You're going to have problems. You're going to have situations that are going to come up all the time. So how can we work through these using what we can control and what we can't control, anxiety and fear and all of those pieces? So how does this apply to everyday life? So we're going to talk about how choices influence your actions, influence an outcome of something. So you're met with a problem or a situation. This drives me crazy. It goes the opposite way, guys. I don't know if you guys have ever done a Facebook Live, but it goes the opposite way. And so you move your hand one way and it goes the other way. It drives me crazy. Anyway, that's my problem right now. But you have a problem or a situation that you need to deal with. It's right here. You then have choices that you need to make. So all of us are met with problems, and sometimes we're actually met with the same problem. So currently, like when we're dealing with COVID, a lot of us are literally met with this exact same problem, that, this virus exists and, it's out there in the world. So we're all met with that exact same problem. But then we have choices about how we deal with that specific problem. Now, your choices are going to be influenced by your past experiences, by your cognitive biases, by individual differences, things like age, your socioeconomic status, your personal, your political, your religious beliefs, all of those kind of things are things that are going to influence your choices. But everybody has choices to make surrounding that problem. Then based on your choices, which are like up here, like things that you're dealing with your head, then you move forward to action. And your action gives you options on how to act based on those choices. So your actions are the way that you act based on the things that you've chosen. Now, your choices and your actions are both things that you can completely control. So you have mostly control over your choices. Like I said, some of them are influenced by things that maybe you don't necessarily have current control over, but you had control over them at some point in your life or your lifetime. And you also have choices to change your choices, or the option to change your choices. So if you're currently, your current reality is that this is the only choices that you're given based on, say, your financial situation, that, I can only make these specific choices to act in this way because I don't have enough money to do this other thing. Well, those are things that you could work towards changing that maybe you can't change in this exact moment. But then you have your actions. So your actions are the way that you actually act. So you can have complete control over that one. That one is nobody but you. You were taking full responsibility for those actions. But then the last one is the outcome, which is the direct result of your choices and your actions, but you actually have no control over the outcome of most things. So that is, the example that I came up with is, I'm hanging around just being totally good. I've eaten on point all day, and then mean old Lindsay comes up and offers me this delicious cupcake, and I love cupcakes. So then I have a choice of what I'm going to do about that, based on my goals, based on how far I've come in my journey, based on maybe that cupcake's going to make me barf, whatever it is, but I have choices to make. My action is then I say, no, thanks, Lindsay. I don't want to eat that cupcake. It's not really in line with my goals. Or maybe I just say, screw you for giving me that cupcake, Lindsay. Whatever you choose, that's your direct action. Then my outcome, I have no control over. So tomorrow morning when I step on that scale, even though I didn't eat that cupcake, I can't control what that scale does. So and that is sometimes where we see people get so frustrated in their journey, is that they controlled their choices, they controlled their action, but their outcome is out of their control. So letting go of that outcome and not fearing the outcome, being confident in your choices and your actions, that you respect the outcome, whatever it might be. And you kind of let it go because you control the choices, you control the action, and then you let the outcome go. Because that is the piece that you absolutely cannot control. So there's no point fearing it. There's no point being anxious about it. You control the choices, you control the actions, you let go the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard. That is, I think, probably one of the hardest things, because you're in a situation where, we hear it all the time. I worked so hard. I did so great. I did so amazing. And then I step on the scale and it's not cooperating with me. Well, screw it. It's over. I'm just going to eat all the crap that I want. Right. So if you look at choices, action, outcome, and then it goes right back to choices again. If you're making the wrong choices after the outcome, which is not part of your control, then you're deciding that it comes to, well, screw it. I'm just going to eat that crap again, or I'm going to have 4 cupcakes, or I'm just going to not even work out because I'm pissed, or whatever that choice is. So that is where that loop, where you have to really understand that as you're going through it, you got to make the choices that work, because the choices and the actions are yours.
Your entire day looks like this. This is what you do all day long, is choice, action, outcome, choice, action, outcome for everything in your life. That it's not just your weight loss journey, it's relationships. It's, maybe your husband says something that kind of ticks you off, and you're like, and you have that moment of, I have a choice on what I can do right now about that. I can let this slide, or, this can be a debate, an argument, a disagreement, a conversation. That again is your choice, and your action is what you can do about that. And then there's the outcome that you sort of have no control over, because as soon as you're involving anything that's out of your control, whether it be another person or, something else that you cannot control, the outcome is often out of your control. So remember always that, choices, actions, outcomes. So if you're looking for a desired outcome, your choices and your actions can often lead you towards that outcome, but ultimately you can't control what that outcome is going to be. So give it some space. And it's going to be a hard one to kind of wrap your head around. And it's a hard one to accept sometimes when, like Lindsay said, you feel like you've done all the right things and you're not getting the outcomes that you want. Now, sometimes it means that we have to go back and revisit our choices and our actions. Are they really the ones that line up properly for us? Or is the outcome, for me, myself, I'll just give you guys an example that I had a goal weight that I hit, and then now I'm, a reasonable amount above my goal weight, but my goal changed. And so I can't keep that original outcome when I've changed my choices and my actions to actually hit a different outcome. But sometimes my brain still gets super messed up and wants that other outcome again. And it's like, no, because now my choices and my actions are leading me towards this alternate outcome, which is actually building muscle and having a stronger, healthier body, which is something that I really want. So when I sit back and think about it, that original outcome isn't what I'm looking for anymore. So I've released that, I've let it go, but sometimes that old mean brain still creeps up and reminds me that one time I wanted that outcome. It's like if you ever break up with somebody and you're like, ooh, but did I do the right thing? Maybe I should try to, give them a call. No, you probably shouldn't, because you broke up with them for a reason. So there's little things like that sometimes come up and you think maybe that outcome isn't really what I want, but think about it and remind yourself why your actions and your choices are leading you towards this new outcome instead.
Right. And think about this exact free challenge that we have going on. Okay. Your action was to sign up for it, right? That was a choice. So you decided to sign up. Your choice was to sign up for it. Your action was to show up for it, right? And your outcome is going to be either, wow, that's really eye-opening. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. What happens here? Where do I go from now? What's going on there? If your choice was to sign up for it and your action was to not show up for it, then you're not going to have the outcome that, that we're telling you you can have if you show up and you do the work. So it all comes down to that. And we have many people in our programs. We have lots of one-on-one clients that we work through this choices, action, outcome all the time, regularly, over and over and over again. Sometimes because in a month we look and see what's not working, so let's go back to the drawing board. We see what's working, so let's make sure we're keeping to do that. But it is a process that is constantly on our front game all the time, because as you're going through whatever it is your goals are, you need to be looking at all the things in order to do that, because we see it. People do it. We see a lot of this. They change things like that without really giving your body or your body anything an opportunity, and then your body just spirals without having that action, the choices, action, outcome. You're really not giving your body or your mind or anything, whatever your goals are, justice to really get to the outcome that you desire. So keep that in mind as we're going through all of this. If you're sitting here like shaking your head at Christina and being like, yeah, and then not doing anything about it, that's a choice. Right? And that's okay. And I mean, we can't force you, just like Christina said at the very beginning. I can't make her do anything. I can encourage her. I can support her. I can, yell at her a little bit sometimes, but I can't make her do it. So ultimately, that's a choice. The choice, the action, and then the outcome. The muscles that are being gained. She posted in our group today, her butt that's kind of coming into like really nice looking butt. That is a choice, an action, and outcome. That's the only thing that happens. If she had decided that she just wanted that number so badly on the scale that she wasn't going to pick up her weight, she wasn't going to work harder in her workouts, and she wasn't going to do some of these things, well, then the choice, the action, the outcome would be very different, right?
I have very flat butt.
Yeah, I was going to say the flat butt would still exist. Anyway, so guys, so the one thing, there is no homework based on this process, right? But we do want you to constantly be thinking about it, right? And so if you have a moment to sit down and think of some of the things and you want to kind of put it through that kind of wheel, do it. And if you have any questions, of course, there's going to be a question thread for this video, the day 2 anyway, so you can have that as part of your process. But it is not necessarily a homework piece of it, but it's definitely still a very important piece. As you can see how they join together.
In the next, couple days, that there's some outcomes in your life that are less than desirable, which, let's be honest, we all have outcomes that happen probably every day that you're like, that wasn't really what I was hoping for. There's little things that come up. Sometimes they're big, but sometimes they're just little things. And just think about when the outcome happens that you're not real thrilled with, what were the actions and the choices that came before that outcome? So go backwards in the process and look at that, because sometimes when you're first learning this process, it's hard to go through it in the moment. It's hard to be like, my choices, my actions, my outcomes, my choices, it's hard to catch yourself in it because you're like, you just move through it so quickly sometimes. But if you can backtrack through it and then start to find some of your patterns, and you will notice certain patterns in certain situations. So go backwards in it, and that can often be really helpful when you're first starting to pick this up. And again, like I said, you have a fight with a friend, or a disagreement with one of your kids or your spouse, or you step on the scale, or you make a bad choice for a meal. What led to that? So all of those little things that are little negative pieces in your life, what led you to that negative outcome that isn't necessarily what you're wanting? What was the action that happened right before it? Then what were the choices that led to that action? And go backwards in that.
Absolutely. And in today, what I posted about Jane, if you haven't read it, definitely go back and take a read, because it is something that we come across a lot. Somebody says to us one thing, which is what they think is the issue, right? So in this case, it was, I don't want to meal prep. I can't meal prep. I don't like meal prepping. And having a conversation with her, that turned around to, I don't love my body. I don't want to look in the mirror. I hate going to that side swipe of the mirror and being like, ugh, right? And that turned into, as we continue to work down, what her comfort food was, that food was always for comfort. And ultimately, she was never going to get past the food part of it because she looked at it as comfort. And see, all of those things played a part in her choices, her actions, and her outcome. But she didn't even know what part of that was. So when you're sitting there, you're like, oh my gosh, why can't I get off the damn hamster wheel? Why do I go and fall off and come back on and fall off? That's when you just have to look at these things, what you can and cannot control, anxieties and fears, this action, choices, action, outcome, and then this final one that I'm going to talk about in just a second is anchors. And those are the 4 that we really encourage you to kind of take a look at, because those are going to give you some of the answers. They may not give you all the answers. And as I said, if we could just magic wand and boom, here's the answer. We get questions a lot of the time and we're like, well, this could be it, but we can't tell you for sure. And I get it. People get frustrated with that. But the truth of the matter is it really depends on you. And so that's why it's all about coming back to what you can and cannot control.
But having these tools in your toolbox is going to be really helpful to move through your journey. You might not use them, right away, or you might not use them every day, or maybe you're only going to use pieces of them right now. Maybe the only one that you're comfortable going with right now is this fear or is this anxiety? And, just having that conversation with yourself, but it's going to help you move through some pieces of things that, and then slowly introduce more. Come back and watch this video. I saw somebody jump on and say, I forgot this was on. Come back and watch it. Watch it from the beginning, that you don't have to just jump on right now and then finish with us here. Start from the beginning and watch the whole thing and see what piece resonates with you. And if there's a piece that's a little scary for you and you're not quite ready to tackle it, take some notes and, put it aside and come back to it when you're ready, when you've already felt some success. Sometimes that's a really big thing, is that feeling some success in parts of what's happening can be really important. And then you're ready to tackle the next thing. And then you're ready to tackle the next thing. That's why we always tell, small little baby steps. Don't tackle everything at once. Because I just saw somebody post, building new rituals or habits takes time. And absolutely it does, Angela, that is super important. So when you give yourself that time and allow yourself to move through your comfort zones, it's tough sometimes and it can bring up some stuff. So, all right, let's talk anchors.
All right, so let's talk anchors, because this is a really important thing, right? So you're going to get a worksheet that looks, and again, I'm going to see if you can see it. It looks kind of like that. What's your anchor? Stress versus focus. So here's what tends to happen. Because we don't always think about the things we can and cannot control, we focus on the things we can't, which is often what we get ourselves into trouble. And then because we can't control it, it becomes a major stressor in our life, right? It absolutely does. So I'll give you an example. My kids actually have done really well with online school, and I'm not going to lie, I can't turn around and say it's been a nightmare, but I work full time. My husband works full time. We haven't been able to do nearly as much as we probably would have liked to have done with them. But that's not something that I can necessarily control. So at the first 2 weeks of lockdown or whatever, where the kids were out of school, Christy and I both were just like, oh my God, this is crazy. How are we going to do our business? How are we going to have the kids home? Like, they're running around like maniacs that keep coming in, even though I tell them not to, right? All of these things. But ultimately it got to the point where it's like, well, we can't control the fact that they're not at school. So there's no point in keeping that as a stressor in our lives. And I'll talk more for me, because it was my life. I was like, I can't have this as a stressor in my life. So I had to refocus and find something that was my anchor, which basically means, if you think about an anchor on a boat, even if you know nothing about boats, you throw an anchor overboard and it holds your boat in place. Okay, that's the concept of an anchor. I needed something that allowed me to keep my anchor, keep my boat afloat without falling or flying or doing anything like that. And so in the case of the school, I basically went down at 11 o'clock every day and was like, how are you doing? And if they were doing great, I'd be like, excellent. If they weren't doing great, I was like, good job, keep trying, right? And that was my anchor, because it allowed me to touch base with them, even though I was working. It allowed me to let it go if it was not going so well. I would get a message from their teacher if it wasn't going well, which, to be fair, I never did. So that was just a worry that I had in my head. But that became the anchor for that. Now, we talk a lot about scheduling. We hear people, who had to work from home, and now the schedule is completely off track, and I don't know when I'm eating lunch, and I forget to meal prep, and I don't do this and I don't do that. Well, then you have to figure out what that anchor becomes, and whether that is, your 12 o'clock walk. You go for a power walk outside, you come in, you have lunch, and then you sit back down at your computer. Whether it's that you have a call with a friend. I have 2 clients, and I'm like, you guys call each other at noon every day, so you get your butt off your chair, and you walk around while you're chatting. I had a client that I've literally walked with her while I'm on a call, so that she could get her walk in and I could walk with her so that she would do it. That becomes the anchor. So what we want you guys to really think about is some of the stressors that are in our lives, okay? First of all, go through the can and cannot control portion of it, right? If you can, if you can't, that's super important. Then I want you to see how you can change that stressor into a focus by finding that anchor. And again, this is one, I've done training on this privately with some of our clients before. Is not something that's really, really easy to work with. Again, we've asked you, we've told you, we are going to stretch you guys this challenge. We're going to ask you to do things that feel really uncomfortable. We're going to get you out of that comfort zone and just be like, what the heck? So if you're sitting there going, I really don't understand, okay? So this is the thing. When you are in a place where stressors come up, we can always find something, okay? And I'll use an example of a client of mine. So she has a lot of stress going on in her life. Her anxiety gets really high, things go on, and I am her anchor. Okay, so she sends me a message. I talk with her during our coaching sessions. Even to the point where she's doing an online class with us and I'm the instructor. All she has to do is take a look, see that I'm huffing and puffing and breathing out my butt because it's hard work, and be like, okay, she's doing it, so am I. I'm feeling okay. So that I'm an anchor for a lot of my clients. I'm not going to lie. Our instructors for our classes, Christina for nutrition, becomes anchors. So that can be definitely an anchor. A person can be an anchor. A thing can be an anchor, right? In the kitchen, for me, I often get intimidated about certain things. So what did I do? I got rid of all those things, right? There's nothing in my kitchen that intimidates me anymore because I wanted to be in a place where I didn't walk into the kitchen and was like, how do I use that? My Instapot was an example. Christy and I talked about this all the time. I think my Instapot sat in its box for a month and a half before I touched it, because I was so like, I don't know about that. So again, you can pick your anchors based on the things that you want. And of course, it's only going to be based on you. I can't tell you, use Christina as an anchor. I can't tell you, use your dog as an anchor. Dogs are a good one. They can go for a walk. Are really good. Right? I was going to say, right? Christina uses going for a walk with Farley, in the mornings as an anchor of mentally preparing for the day, physically preparing for the day, emotionally not wanting to kill everybody. That's part of the anchor, right? That's how it works. So find something like that.
I had a client that gave me this when I was away somewhere, that she keeps something similar to this, smaller, but in her pocket as an anchor. Something that just reminds you of, to anchor yourself, basically. Reminds you of, casual, calm, relaxed, whatever it is. But having a physical anchor is something else that can help. Yeah.
Absolutely. My daughter is a big fidgeter, which I'm not surprised. If you ever see me talking with a client, I have a fidget spinner. Most of the time you can't see it. Sometimes it's there. So she's a big fidgeter. So my husband and I got these rings just because they're easy for weightlifting and whatever. They're plastic. They're like $4. I got her some small ones, and it actually has a little fidget spinner thingy in the ring. And so she sits there in her class now, and she just, on her online class, and she'll just fidget like this. And it just becomes that spot for her to really stay focused versus being like, and again, kids do that, adults do that. We're all very much, trying to keep our focus. But anything, right? A physical product can be an anchor. A person can be an anchor. A feeling can be an anchor. The only thing I would suggest is not have a food to be your anchor, unless it's something like salmon is your anchor for when you're feeling really down or something like that, because that can get into a pretty slippery slope if you start adding food as your anchor. But other than that, journaling is my anchor. So I'm a really terrible sleeper. I think I was telling you guys before, I've always had, total anxiety with sleeping, only because I've had insomnia for so long. I journal before I go to bed. I read. I meditate. That is my sleeping routine anchor. And if I don't do it, I don't sleep as well. And so those are the things I want you just to really think about. So there could be multiple. You could have, I've given you a lot of spaces there for your different stressors and focus, but you don't have to have all of them. You don't have to fill them all in.
As my nutrition anchor, the one that I have used for a long time, is posting my food every day. That is something that anchors me. It keeps me on point with my nutrition. It's something that I just feel like I have to do every day. And it's not just, I don't post in MyFitnessPal all the time anymore, but I literally post every day on our thread in the Bariatrics Beyond the Honeymoon group. And that really anchors my nutrition. And when I go to make a poor decision when it comes to nutrition, that brings me back that I have to share that later in the day. And so that's something that I really find is a good anchor for me in terms of support.
Yeah, and right now, guys, your accountability partner could be your anchor, right? That could be that person who is just like, hey, Christina, you said you were going to get your stuff done, and I know you mentioned you wanted a little bit of tough love, so where is it, right? So your accountability partner can be your anchor. But again, remember, you can't control what your accountability partner does or says. You can't control, unfortunately, what Christina and I do. I
don't want your ring, Lindsay.
I know. I got it off Amazon, and funny enough, one of my clients told me about it because she saw me playing with my fidget spinner one day, and she's just like, "What's the deal?" And I'm like, "I need it to I personally use my fidget spinner to give the best of me to whoever I'm speaking with. Because if I don't, then I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So it's always been something that I work with. And so, yeah, she had said, hey, I think it's on Amazon. I'll post the link if you guys want it. It's really cool. It just kind of moves. This one, again, these are just 2 rings. So I do often use these ones. You'll probably see me, do that. But the ring itself that I got actually has the movement in it. And it's just really nice to do it. So I'll post that. But yeah, it's a great one. But so finding the anchor that you can control, and that's the biggest thing, right? Dance parties when I'm stressed out is a huge, huge anchor for me. My kids, even though sometimes they are the biggest part of my stressor, if I throw on some music, I'm not even kidding, it could be 90s friggin' Backstreet Boys, they are dancing like crazy maniacs with me, and you can't help but smile, right? So that becomes a big anchor for me when it comes to definitely different stressors. Some of the classes that I teach now become my anchor. I teach early morning classes. I get out of bed at 4. I get grumpy. I'm very angry sometimes. And then the class comes on, the music comes on, whatever happens, and I'm all of a sudden in a very different mood than when I first woke up. So it can be very different things depending on what your stresses are. And again, without knowing exactly what yours are per se, music, yes.
Music is a huge one for me too, that music is a big, big anchor. I feel on days when I can have music going all day, I'm in such a better mood, which actually was today. And it's funny, I logged into class today. I taught a Tabata class a couple hours ago. And when I logged in, I gave Lucretia the option. I'm like, Lucretia, do you want to do Tabata with music today? And she's like, or without? And she's like, with? Like, hello, if that's an option. So I feel like music is a big one for a lot of people. That's a big anchor. So
yeah, and it's interesting too because I'm a big music fan. As I said, when we do our dance parties, it's one thing, but today I actually had work I had to get done, and it was a must do. I had to get it done, and so I put on instrumental music when I'm really trying to work. And we've had this conversation, Christine and I, because she's like, no, I have to have my country. But so I'll put my earphones on and I'll literally blare the instrumental music so I can't hear the dogs, the kids, anything else that are going on. And that becomes my anchor so that I can sit and focus. And, within 45 minutes, I've done the tasks that I need to get done. But if I didn't have that on, I would be everywhere listening, hearing, talking, doing whatever. So really focus on that. And the spreadsheet that's there will give you an opportunity to take a look at some of your bigger stressors in your life. Now, I've given you a few. Some of them may not feel like big ones to you. But again, that's how it works. It's yours or, whatever it is that is your stressor. Figuring out what that anchor is so you can focus on what it is. So again, filling out the homework, giving yourself a positive and inspirational songs, yeah, a must. A motivational video, guys, is one of those things. Like if you have a good motivational video, there are days when I'm just like, again, because I try to give everything to our clients, to our, our members and stuff like that, there are days when I definitely don't feel as great as I want to, and I put in a motivational video that I know that I love, and it doesn't matter, it will pick me up. A movie could be a really good one. There's movies, right, that you think about that will never, you can bawl your eyes out and watch it, but still feel so much better afterwards. So there's lots of different anchors. Yeah, lots of different anchors.
For our worksheets for this week, so you have the 2 of them. You have the can control and can't control, which we'd like you to complete by Friday for that one. Kind of by Thursday night, by Friday, whatever. But that one you don't actually have to submit. We'd like you to share that one with your partner, with your accountability partner, but you don't need to submit that. The one that's going to be submitted on the homework thread is the anchor worksheet, and that needs to be submitted by Thursday night's call. So we have another live on Thursday night. So you only really have the 2 days to get your anchor sheet done. So that's the one that we're going to want you to work on today, tomorrow, submit by Thursday. Thursday's call is the hour later than this, I think. So
yeah.
So yeah,
we never know. These calls, we're like, we try to cover as many time zones. If you haven't seen, we have 7 time zones that we cover regularly, from Alaska all the way to Newfoundland, and that doesn't include people we have members in Australia, we have members in England, and so we try to cover as many time zones as possible. But yeah, so day 3, guys, will be on Thursday. We're actually discovering the secret sauce. The secret sauce. I'm so excited to really.
This is what you joined for. That everybody we know you guys joined. The mindset stuff's great, and the worksheets are fun, and seeing Lindsay and I is awesome. But you joined because you wanted the secret sauce. You wanted to know what you needed to do to get this weight off once and for all, to keep it off, and to make that happen. So that is Thursday.
Yes, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So guys, again, get your homework in, really ask yourself these questions. If you have any questions, there's going to be a question thread again when you go into the units. There's going to be a brand new unit for day 2. So unit 5, day 2, you're going to see the video. You're going to see, so if you want to watch it again, you're going to see the worksheets. Again, I posted them as PDF and as photos because I know some people like both. You're going to see a homework thread, so that's where the homework goes. And you're going to see a question thread. And remember, at the very end of this, we're doing a bonus question and answer session. So we will be answering lots of questions then. And then as the questions kind of come up, we'll talk through them. We've seen lots of great questions. We've seen lots of really thought-provoking questions. Again, we want to help you guys get to where you need to be. And the only way you can do that is by asking. If you're sitting here like throwing your hands in the air and saying, oh, this is so confusing, I don't know anything, choice, right? Choice, action, outcome. Remember, we're here to support you. We're in the group. We're talking to you guys. There's lots of people in the group helping too. We've seen people, tagging them, and this is where the homework goes. This is the homework sheet. So ask away. Don't sit there alone thinking you're by yourself and you don't understand. Ask the questions.
And really, really, guys, rely on your accountability buddy. I swear you will be so much more successful if you create this accountability buddy system, that it will be so much better for you. It's really, really an important part of this. So we want you to make sure that you're chatting with that buddy, that you're sending them a message. How did you get your homework done? Tagging them in that homework thread. Of course, you want to win a prize, but you want your buddy to win a prize too. We definitely want to make sure that you guys are involving your buddy as much as you can. If your buddy is not responding to you, message one of us and we will find you a new buddy.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anybody's still looking, I actually know of one person who's looking for a buddy who just reached out to me this afternoon, like maybe an hour ago. So if you're still looking for a buddy, reach out to myself, reach out to Christina, reach out in the accountability post and be like, I'm still looking, whether my buddy was a dud or not. Again, we've seen such amazing buddies helping right now. So we're not saying, of course, there's duds. But if you want somebody, reach out and let us know.
And we know a lot of you guys are showing up, you're doing the work, and it's amazing, but we definitely know what happens in these things, that a lot of people have great intentions, but then their intentions sort of dwindle as time goes on. So if your buddy's intentions have dwindled a little bit, maybe you could try to inspire them. But if they're beyond inspiration at this point, then let them go, because that's a can't control. And can control is find a new buddy. So we can definitely hook you up there. So I love that your buddy is helping you. This is fantastic. It's so, so good that it's seriously, I'm going to give you a secret. It's going to be part of the secret sauce is the buddy. So it's not
awesome.
a secret.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we know your time is valuable. We know you have lots of stuff going on. So we appreciate you being here with us. We will see you on Thursday, I think 1 hour later than today, to try to catch some of the later folks. I don't even know which ones. But if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.